Hey guys, I had a request to do an overview on the kicker wagons that I have, as far as how they are constructed, and some of my thoughts, what works and what doesn't for a kicker wagon. It's a perfect time to make this video. Thank you for the request, because I just finished painting this one. If you go back and see my video watching paint dry, I had talked about the three New Holland drying wagons that I had bought and made hay wagons. And then I had another wooden wagon that I made. Basically, the 4 wagons that I had on my dad's operation, those 4 wagons I had built the hay racks for them. I didn't have any racks that were already pre-made. I had to make them all. Now these wagons, this one and the ones in the back here, I had bought from a guy who retired, so I'm kind of just using what I had just bought. But anyway, depending on the cost of materials, it pays if you have a lot of lumber laying around your farm. Over at my dad's, we had a lot of lumber because it was a sawmill back in the early days, and they had a lot of wood stored in the shed that survived for years and years. So I had a lot of oak and a lot of rough cut lumber, so it didn't cost me that much. Now I didn't want to, the one wagon I didn't want to make all oak. I had used 2x4s, and I actually used for the cross members, I had used pressure treated 1x6 decking that you can buy at like a Lowe's or a Home Depot. That decking was actually pretty reasonably priced, so you can go that route too. Now this wasn't a hay wagon originally. This was an international forage wagon that was converted into a hay wagon. But the biggest thing with constructing these is that I found was the side boards that you put on. All right, so you put these side boards on. Nails don't work and screws don't work. Nails usually work themselves loose, and on this wagon there's quite a few nails that have been working their way out. And I've just been basically taking the channel lock pliers and pulling the nails out, because I don't want any nails in the hay, and I didn't want any nails out in the field that would have fallen out of the wagon. Your best bet is to bolt them on. And what I did when I was constructing my wagon, I had just marked them, leveled them. I put a screw in to hold it, and then drilled the holes and put 2 bolts in. If you just put 1 bolt in, they tend to rock back and forth, and they're not as sturdy. And like I said, your best bet is to drill 2 holes and put 2 bolts in these side panels. And the reason why I said to check as far as the cost of materials, if you don't have a lot of lumber on the farm, or a way to do it cheaply, I've seen, at least in Pennsylvania anyway, I don't know other states or areas, you can buy a 16-foot or 18-foot hay rack for under $2,000. Not the running gear, just the wooden rack. And they're constructed, I think it's a Mennonite or an Amish company in Pennsylvania that makes them. And it's basically just a case of setting it on your running gear and you're ready to go. They're constructed very well. They have rear unload. They even have the chains on the side for side unloading. Your best bet is to make a wagon, if you're going to make one, that you can unload from the front or the back. Now this one, the back opens up. This swings up, and then this here that holds the back shut is also the prop to hold it. It's not the best system, but at least you can unload from the back depending on where your barn is. Now I'll go back and show you these other ones. This here red wagon, which you probably see me use a lot, and the only reason why it's used the most is it's the biggest one. It's a little bit more than 16 feet. It's more like 17 feet. I can get the most hay in this wagon. It's a little bit wider. Now you see this one's constructed. The 2x4s are this way, and they're bolted to these cross members. So if you just have a running gear, you can get some pretty heavy, I don't know if you can see under there, you can get some pretty heavy lumber bolted to the sides of your running gear. And then these cross members should be pretty heavy duty, like an oak. And then you can bolt your 2x4s this way, as opposed to putting them this way in a pocket. This tends to be a little bit heavier duty. Now these wagons are pretty old. They've seen a lot of use. And one thing I want to do is, you see right there, there's just one bolt holding these side rails on, and then it's nailed. Well, these nails just keep working themselves loose because this rack can go like this as it's going through the field. I'm probably gonna drill a second hole and put another bolt in. If you have 2 bolts in each one of your cross members, then you're gonna have a pretty solid wagon when you're done. So now this one you can unload from the rear, and it is a pain. I still might cut that back open and make a door for the back yet. I haven't had a all steel wagon, and depending on your area, if you jump on Craigslist, you can find hay wagons usually reasonably priced if you don't want to build one, even an all steel one. I saw an all steel one advertised probably a half hour from me for like $1,800. So it's basically just if you want to build one yourself, like I said, just look at the numbers to see what you're going to need material wise. If you have the lumber and it's just a case of buying some bolts and putting it together, you can make out a lot better. If you don't have the lumber and you have some good running gears, like I said, you might be better off just buying a pre-made rack to set on. If you don't have the lumber. I know lumber prices in the United States have gone up, at least in Pennsylvania this year. They have gone up significantly. So lumber's getting to the point where it's not as cheap as it used to be. In addition to the lumber we have at my dad's place, there is a local sawmill that cuts rough stuff, and they're still pretty reasonably priced. As far as the floors, you see this wagon here has a tongue and groove floor, so it's solid. Basically nothing can fall through as far as loose stuff or anything. It never mattered to me what the floor was. You can see that one over there just has wide planks. But don't skimp on the thickness of the floor, because over time they tend to get wore out. If you have them outside, they get weathered, they get weak. That old wagon up there, the floor is getting kind of spongy and getting wore out. So I'd try to make a thick enough floor that it's solid. The other thing you have to watch if you have younger kids or inexperienced people helping is they get slippery when they get loose hay on them. Even the metal ones. Those New Holland drying wagons were real bad, how slippery the floor was. It was a metal floor. And what I did, I had gotten those stair tread. It's like a sandpaper with adhesive on the back that you can just stick on. And I put a few of those on just because everybody was slipping and falling on that wagon. Now this one here is all oak. And I don't know if you can see, this one has the 2 bolts. And it also has on the back 2 barn doors that swing open, and that gate drops down. So that's a pretty nice construction for the back of a hay wagon. It's still tight for the kicker to throw the wagons in, and then when you want to unload, those 2 barn doors will swing open and the gate will drop down. If you're going to make a rear door for your thrower wagon, and I made this mistake with one of my thrower wagons, is don't build a wooden door the whole size of the rear opening like you see on the steel wagons, because the wood just isn't strong enough and it makes too much flex in the wagon. There's way too much area there that should be solid, and when you're going over uneven terrain, it's just twisting and you're basically cracking up the wood. So I made that mistake. This is a good design here. If you can make yourself a tailgate that flips down and 2 barn doors that swing open, you'll be way further ahead and make a more solid wagon. I know it's getting dark here. This here is basically the same as that one. These 2 wagons are almost identical. This one's in a little bit worse shape, but again, it has the 2 bolts for the cross members. And that does have a rear swinging door, and that is one that's the whole back end. And this wagon is twisting and going over uneven terrain. It's just not a solid wagon. It's not going to last as long. If you can build one all out of oak, that's better. The only trouble is then it's a real heavy wagon if you don't have the horsepower. This drying wagon, or this forge wagon, is a lot of oak. A lot of these boards on the side are oak. The 2x4s are oak. And with the mechanism is still here for the floor chain, this wagon weighs a ton for how small it is. It's a lot heavier than the other Hayrack wagons. So just plus the solid sides here. I do like to have one wagon that has the solid sides. That's probably why I won't get rid of this. Well, they're solid until a little over waist high. If you have some loose stuff or loose hay you want to clean out of the barn, they're nice that it's not falling out all over the place. The other advantage is if you pick corn, you can use these wagons. Yeah, you have to shovel them off, but I have seen guys use hay wagons to pick their corn with. You can use it as like a corn picker wagon. As far as the front, we just use these X. We just make an X here with X bracing, and that holds the sides, both sides, and it adds extra support. You see, it's just a steel pin, and you can use pretty well any kind of pin. I'll tell you what works good is a 3-point hitch link that you can buy and bolt it in there, and then have it sticking out, and then make sure that you steel plate the around where the wood is. You see how they have steel plates on here to help give it a little bit more support, because there's a lot of flexing side to side going on here. That'll help make it last a lot longer if it has a steel plate, and then just a regular pin. I put chains on here. This wagon, when I bought it, the guy had just stuck a nail in to hold it, and the trouble with that is you lose it or it falls out, and then you have a nail in your field. So I just drilled it a little bit bigger, put in a small linch pin, and I put chains on them so you can just, if you have people helping you unload and they're not as they're not paying attention quite as good as you are, you don't lose your pins then if they're on chains. And when you go to unload, you just have to undo the two top pins, and then these will set down out of the way, and you can unload your wagon. These I'd recommend that they're oak. These are 1x6s, I guess, and they are oak to help give it some strength. Like I said, this wagon has a bent tongue. I have to try to get that straightened out. That's how I bought it. That's how I've been using it. I need to get a press, or maybe even just lay it down and drive over it with something heavy to get it straightened out. Tires on your running gear, I wish I could go wider than these. The wider the better, just for flotation reasons and compaction. You're not compacting your hay fields down with skinnier tires once they get heavy. These tires are as wide as I can get. Being an older running gear, if you turn sharp, these tires will rub the inside of the running gear, and if I put anything wider on, it's going to be ripping the tread off. So if you have newer running gears, or can get a newer running gear, put the widest tires you can, and you don't need to buy implement tires either. If you have like 15-inch or 16-inch old pickup truck tires that were like mud tires or off-roading tires, they tend to be pretty good because they're wide and they don't compact the ground. That wagon has very skinny tires on it. I don't like it because there's not much on the ground, and you can kind of see a track when you're baling in the field when the wagon is loaded. So just for compaction reasons, I'd like to see real wide tires on the hay wagons. So this video is getting kind of long, but that's kind of my overview on kicker wagons. Like you say, if you want to build one, it's a lot of drilling holes and running bolts. It does take a lot of hardware. But if you have the lumber and can build them yourself, you can definitely save money. If you don't have the lumber, like I said, look into a pre-made rack. I know here in Pennsylvania we can get them. or see what is out there used if you want an all metal one. Shout out to Messick's Farm Equipment. I saw on their website you can get a end of year special all steel wagon for like $3,900. That's all steel. I guess that's still a offer they have going on. It's a Dutch Brothers wagon. I did look at those. So yeah, just some of my thoughts on thrower wagons. So if you have any more questions, feel free to comment, and thanks for watching, guys.